Welcome, Sandman Nation. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. We're the St. Louis Syndicate, and we've got the newest member of the St. Louis Syndicate who's going to be placing his picks this weekend. There he is,
Hi.
Mr. Ellis
Hi.
Lewis.
Hi.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Brandon. There's our new little guy. What is he? 48 hours old, right?
Yes, he was born Monday morning, just before 10 a.m. He's a little guy, just over 8 pounds, and he has been loving taking big naps during the day and staying awake all night and challenging everybody to see how nocturnal they can be.
That's fantastic. It's going to really be good for your football viewing because he'll be up all night, and then all day when you're trying to watch the games, he's going to be sleeping.
Yeah, I was trying to tell him last night while he was napping. I said, "You're watching your first bowl game, and you're going to get to watch all the bowl games. Because since I'm going to be off work, we're just going to be able to hang out, and he'll just be able to lay next to me and us watch bowl games together. So it'll be the first year that I see all 47 of them or whatever,
Yeah.
and that'll be his first year's legacy is a Christmas when he's 9 days old
Yep.
and 47 bowl games before before he's a month old.
Man, that's pretty cool. Well, we're all excited for you. That's outstanding. I know that he's got to go see his mama.
Oh yeah.
It's a good thing he
Oh
looks
yeah.
like his mom too. I was worried he was going to come out with all kind of hair and looking like you. Man, it would have been crazy.
It was a surprising amount of hair. We spent the first hour or so of labor of the nurses and me and her little sister taking bets on what hair color he was going to come out with.
Oh wow, that's
And it
cool.
turned out very close to my hair color. So I guess
In
I won.
reality, he does look a little bit like you and your brother. So I
Oh
know that I
yeah.
said he should look like his mother to help him, and I think that's true. I've seen Chad,
Oh yeah.
but I think that anytime I get a dig on it, Chad, I need to. So,
For
um,
sure.
but
He's got it coming.
definitely, that is fantastic. Congratulations. We're all excited for you.
Thank you.
We're only going to do one video today. We want to keep your time to a limit. So, Nation, we're going to cover our three topics. It's going to be a very basic video today. We're going to hit Survivor. We're going to hit some NFL picks. We're going to talk about our Power Five, and then we're going to talk about our college football. So, without any further ado, Brandon, Mr. Survivor himself, we've got some top plays coming in this week. What are you thinking?
I think I think that we're going to end up on Atlanta when it comes down to it. I'm a little worried about this quarterback change. Um, obviously Atlanta's making it because they think that Penix can play better than Cousins. Some mix of that, and we need to get the guy some reps if we're going to potentially figure out a way to get into the playoffs. Um, we're going to need, some reps under his belt. But I just think the Giants are inept, more or less.
It's a
And I'm
good
kind
word.
of worried about some of these other matchups when it comes down to it. Obviously, if anybody out there, if you've got Green Bay or Buffalo left, um, those are pretty serious favorites. Out of
Yeah.
division, getting to play at home, the whole thing like that. You got either one of those, tee those up and take a run at it. But um, for me, I got Atlanta, I got Cincinnati, I got Baltimore. I'm a little worried about Baltimore um, in division against Pittsburgh, who just kind of took a whomping last week and might come back with a vengeance. Not to mention that if you kind of look out there to the right, Baltimore has another in division game, Cleveland, that is playing what would be considered a third string quarterback, I guess, starting this week and presumably leading the rest of the week if he stays, or the rest of the season if he stays healthy. So I think I'm planning on holding Baltimore out to week 18, hopefully. So yeah, I think that Atlanta's the best one there if you have them left. But some of the other fun ones, Arizona, if you're feeling like it, Tampa, both those guys have to go on the road, but I think they have some unique advantages against the teams that they're going up against. Um, if you've kind of, used all of these upper teams to get you to here, those are some reasonably efficient teams, it seems, the last couple of weeks. So maybe you can get away with that.
Yeah, I do agree with those teams. The Rams are interesting as well with the Jets. The
Oh,
Jets have been playing a little bit better as of late, um, but the Rams are still having something to play for. They're looking for a division championship. They are on the road, but that hasn't seemed to bother them too much this year.
no, it
Um,
really hasn't.
they won a few on the road. You can kind of look right there and see they've lost a few. They're 50-50 on the road, but I'd say the Rams are a potential play, and they may be a team that you haven't played yet. But
Yeah, I like that. Have an affinity for Stafford when he has his weapons.
yeah,
That game on Thursday night, while, kind of being a, abomination of a football game when it came down to it, was quite a bit of fun to watch.
absolutely, yeah, totally agree. So that's our survivor. Real quick, our top five, Brandon has adjusted. Um,
It has got quite jumbled.
Yeah, it got quite jumbled. The Lions, I think, were number one for like 10 straight weeks in a row, and they fell two spots this week. Partially because of the hit, but also the Montgomery news. I don't think that does that team any justice. That Montgomery was really Dan Campbell's ace in the hole for going for it on fourth down because everybody had to respect how hard Montgomery ran and that he could get a yard on his own and or two, and then that offensive line has nice big pushes. But ultimately, as you go through this, losing that tool, some of the defensive injuries they faced has been tremendous.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I still think that, they're they're the third best team. It's still most people they go up against, they should be beating them. But I think as we get down here to the end of the season, um, taking Buffalo and Philly and sliding them above them the way that Buffalo played Detroit and the way that Philly dealt with an in division game against Pittsburgh, uh, I don't know how you make the argument. Is like unsettling as Pitt or Philly's coach situation, I guess you could see, or team dynamic or leadership issues. Once we get to the playoffs, they'll definitely be a team that I'm kind of
Yeah.
looking at to go, maybe we can get away with betting against them. But right now, they're just steamrolling people. So yeah,
They're
the
kind of like
Fighting
a
Dan
team that's
Campbells, I think, have to slide down a couple of spots.
the Phillies are kind of that team like with the crazy weird uncle man as the coach, and
Uh-huh.
they just keep it's like it's a mess, but it's our mess, and they kind of rallied
Right.
around that a little bit,
Sure.
and that's something definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah.
The Packers are a new addition to our five. That fifth hole has bounced around all year, right? It's the top four have
Yeah.
stayed fairly consistent. The Chiefs have popped in and out of 4 and 5. Obviously, the Mahomes injury is concerning, but whenever the Packers they've been playing, I think this goes to your point last week when you said, are really the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions kind of elite, and they're just beating up everybody, and then they're losing to each other and
Right.
causing all kind of problems. And then when they get outside of the division, are they just whooping people? And that's kind of been the case. Now I understand Detroit lost. It was to Buffalo though, who's a juggernaut right now.
Sure.
I really kind of feel like that North is the strongest division and top to bottom. Other than have you seen that meme where they have the dogs and the one is Gladius Maximus and the other one goes I'm Jeff. That's kind of like the Bears.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw exactly how it was. I mean, Monday night we get to sit down and watch Minnesota just hold the Bears down and do whatever they wanted to them for 4 quarters. So, yeah, I definitely think, and to be honest, we did have that conversation. I then stared at that line for hours the rest of the week, and then took Seattle, and then watched like the first drive and went, "Oh, this isn't going to work. Cool. Okay."
Yeah.
So the Sandman himself reached out about Seattle getting up into the top five dreaming,
Yeah.
and unfortunately for our Seattle native, or our at least Washington native, um, eh, they just they didn't have the firepower, and then Gino got hurt, and one might argue that if Gino was out there for the fourth quarter, that game might have covered.
Maybe.
That's kind of what I was thinking the entire time I was watching it, while Sam Howell was incapable of throwing the ball to his teammates. But nevertheless,
And
I think all three of these teams have to be in the top 10. When you stare at it and just go,
yeah.
I don't know who playing these guys at home. If you flip it and go, hey, Minnesota, Detroit, Green Bay, they're going to have a home game.
Hmm.
There's only like three, four teams that I might take over them. So,
Yeah.
that's a hell of a strong division this year.
I'm not sure I would take the Eagles, who's our two ranked team, over any of them at home. So if it's a Packer home game, a Viking home game, or a Lions home game, there's a chance and they're playing the Eagles, that I'm taking any of those teams instead of the Eagles.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I do think over Minnesota, um, Minnesota does seem like they're kind of focusing most of their power through their defense, and that their defense is causing their offense to have better opportunities and better like ability to get rolling, and that Philly might be able to screw that up. But um but yeah, it's really a performance thing that gets Philly up to number two, not necessarily that I would go, hey, on a neutral or as a home game. Like on a neutral field, I'd probably put Philly ahead of them. But if they had to go into Lambeau or into
Yeah.
Ford Field, I would I'd probably lay, you know, less than three, um,
Oh,
for
for
Detroit or
sure.
Green Bay to get out of there.
For sure. I think that's interesting. I've been monitoring this with you all year. You've got a something about Minnesota that you don't like. They're 12-2 and 13-2 or something, and
Yeah,
they
12-2. Yeah.
12-2, and you just do not give them any due credit. We're gonna have to get Pat on from, I think he lives in Minnesota, and to get his opinion on this, because I, they've done nothing to tell me that they shouldn't have won 12 games. I mean, they,
Look,
is it the Sam Darnold seeing ghosts? I mean,
it is. Well,
you got
it's not
bias?
necessarily just the seeing ghosts part of it, but it is the that a lot of offense, um, the power comes from the head. So
Yeah,
if regardless, look, I've given Minnesota's defense a lot of
you have,
kudos. That
you
like
have.
most of the time when I've taken Minnesota, it's because I've looked at the line and went, I don't this week we got Minnesota on the road in Seattle. And I go, after I just took Seattle to cover against Green Bay, because I don't respect Green Bay's defense as much, even though I'm gonna have to start. Um, I think the way that Minnesota disguises their blitzes, regardless if Geno's out there, I think Minnesota is going to cause real problems for Seattle's offense, and that Seattle's defense is not going to be able to do the same thing to Darnold.
Yeah.
But I know that the first time Darnold has a bad game, they are sunk.
Oh,
It's not we'll fight through it and we'll get, out the other side. When he gets screwed up, it's going to screw the game up. So that's where I kind of separate Minnesota a little bit from Detroit and Green Bay,
for
where
sure.
their quarterbacks just seem consistent and less flappable, would kind of be where my head goes with
Makes
it.
sense. All right, I can see that. They still aren't going to crack the top five, but I can see
No, no, not this week.
not this week. All
They've got
right,
an
so
opportunity. Look, they've got they've got three. Look, they get to play at home against Green Bay a week from now, and then
yeah,
they get to go to Detroit. They have all the opportunities in the world to win this division and climb all the way up to like number two, maybe, if they win those three games.
yeah. I mean, there's no reason for them not to.
Yeah, I mean, like,
They
if
have a fair
Buffalo
shot.
wins out, if everybody, obviously Minnesota, if they win out, they're knocking Green Bay and Detroit down. But if Buffalo wins out and Minnesota wins out, I think they both just kind of slide all the way to the top.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if they go. They may not make your top five power rankings, but
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how they do.
so hey, for our touch point this week, because we're doing just one episode, we're just gonna have a couple games that we want to pick. We're gonna pick our NFL games, and there's not a lot to talk about in college this week, other than maybe the big games. I mean, the four coming up on Friday and Saturday, so we'll pick those games for us. So let's start off looking here. We've got Pittsburgh and Baltimore with we're going to give the line Baltimore minus 6.5. Now, be in lieu of Brandon's newborn and Mr. Ellis joining, we've got a little baby blue elephant. That's Brandon's picks, and I'm the St. Louis Cardinal logo for the St. Louis Syndicate. Brandon, you're on the Baltimore Ravens this week instead of Pittsburgh. I've been telling you this for weeks and years that when these teams play in the NFC North, unless there's a definitive reason, like Cleveland's involved, that the spread's more than 3.5, never take against it. So I'm all over Pittsburgh. I want to know your reasoning why you're going against the most sound logic in the game of football.
I think that whether Pickens and Watt play, they're not going to be 100%. And so I think that that gives us a nice edge on Baltimore.
Okay.
That I've seen, we just watched what Pittsburgh's offense does. And I think their defense will go out there and play hard, even if,
Okay.
you know, I don't know. I think there's a good chance that Watt doesn't play and that Pickens does. If I had to guess, I would
Watt
go
not playing
Pickens
is a
probably
big
gets
deal.
out there and plays and Watt doesn't. Um, and I think that just allows Baltimore that little bit of an edge to get the running game rolling, and Pickens out there not 100% probably doesn't give them the opportunity to put the kind of stress on Baltimore's defense they did a couple weeks ago when the venue was flipped.
Sure.
So that's where my head goes with that one.
So we got Kansas City. Both of us are on the Chiefs at -3. We're both assuming that Mahomes is going to play. The
Yeah.
Vegas assumes he's going to play. The line is moved all the way through. It was Houston minus, I believe, -2.5, and now it's all the way back to Kansas City at a -3. So that tells me
Yeah.
Mahomes is going to play. I think strategically, that's a terrible decision on Kansas City's part. I think they
I would
should let him
agree.
sit this weekend and then let him attack the next 2 weekends, especially with the short week with him playing on Christmas Day on Netflix. We'll see how that goes. Um, I really think that focusing those last two games to get the bye in the is key. This game against Houston, I don't think it means anything. But that being said, it's their last home game of the season. He wants to play in front of his crowd before the playoffs start. He'll play. They'll win probably by 1 point.
uh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I zagged last week. Cleveland came out there flat. Um, it leads me to believe that Spags is getting the guys that came in for the injured players more up to speed.
Yep.
And it seems like there is just something that is just not working with Houston's offense. Um, they beat Miami, but kind of barely. Like when it came down to it, like offensive efficiency wise, they weren't really playing any better. It's just Houston's
Right.
defense made some great plays, and I think if Pat's out there, their defense, Houston's defense, isn't able to take advantage of weird passes the way that they were able to take advantage of Tua.
Yeah. No, totally makes sense. Denver and the Chargers, just going straight down. We're both on Denver this week, the plus 2.5. Um, we talked earlier. This should be a Denver destruction of the Chargers based on how the Chargers played last week, but it's kind of one of those things we call trap games. These trap games make me extremely nervous. You know, everybody is going to be thinking Denver's getting points. Why is Denver getting points? And it's going to be something dumb like, you know, Harbaugh has always had Bo Nix's number in college, and Bo Nix fumbles 3 times, and none of us are going to be expecting it. So I'm going to actually do a little bit more research this week on the relationship between Bo Nix and Harbaugh's defenses because I really wonder if there's something there. Somebody
Sure.
knows something that I don't know. This isn't your traditional, oh, let's give them 3 points because it's home field. I mean, Denver's been playing better for a while now, and there's a plus. I
When
can
the Chargers don't have a home field,
no, they don't.
like I mean,
I'll take it.
SoFi doesn't give anybody a home field advantage really.
No,
Um, and I, look, I don't love the 2.5. In one of the other contests that we play in, we have Denver at 3.5, which is making me just excited to watch this game tomorrow night.
yes,
But the 2.5 is a little rough. But it is one of those things where I just go like, look, if the Chargers can scrape by, McConkey um, has to be on his shit because Dobbins being out has just erased their running.
yeah,
Um,
completely.
so, you know, the Chargers defense may get in Bo's face, give him a hard time, um, make it a little bit rough. But I think that as long as both teams, I would assume, are going to go into this game looking to minimize big mistakes. And if both teams can execute at that, I give Denver the edge. If the Chargers get out there and they can make some turnovers, that's on them. They get to, they're going to run away with it. But I think if we get to the end of it and it's no turnovers for both sides, I think Denver ends up winning the game.
Yeah, yeah, I agreed. Last one we've got on the slate: Philly, Washington. Man, I could have picked Washington here. I just picked Philly because they're the number 2 power ranked team in the St. Louis Syndicate poll, and it's hard to go against. Now, I really like Washington, and so I know why you picked them. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, but I just see that Philly right now is playing strong. They need to win this to lock up the division, to lock up everything that they're trying to accomplish in their season. Um, it's going to be like a weird Band of Brothers things, right? They're going to go in with all of their My Cousin Vinny jackets on, and they're going to go into Washington and try to circle the wagons. And they're as you mentioned earlier, right? They're crazy. It's like they're a crazy family, but it's their crazy family, and they just tend to fight for each other. And they could really probably give Washington some fits here. 3.5. I hate the hook. I hate the hook. I hate the hook.
Uh
But
huh.
I'm gonna lay it.
Yeah. And I'm tearing a little page out of your book that even though Washington's defense has not been highly rated throughout the years, that Quinn has been able to get the defense ramped up several times.
He has.
And I think this is one of those spots where if Washington is going to be successful and they are going to like ramp back up to go into the playoffs hard, that this is a game where you have to come out there and you have to cause the problems with AJ Brown, basically. I mean, we know that Brown's got the little hip drop tackle issue
Hmm.
where his ankle got twisted up, and
Yep.
Saquon has some injury that he isn't even willing to tell anybody what's going on. Um,
Yeah. It was weird.
so I just go here. If I got a coach that has been able to ramp up their defense a couple of times, and all of a sudden they left Philly, left a game that they played really well in with some weird injuries. Give
Oh
me
yeah.
the hook.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Hey, I can see it. I could very easily drag that little icon over, and I still may before Sunday. I still may before
Oh,
Sunday.
yeah, for sure.
So big news, right? First time. Who you got? Right? Who is it? Who's gonna make the college playoff? I've been looking at Bill's the new games out there, man. I'm telling you, Sandman Nation, he's got some fire games out there, and I'm playing in 2 or 3 of them. I'm El Perfecto. I'm working on my perfect bracket. I've got some squares for the win. I can't wait. I'm fired up. This is kind of in alignment with more for the win. And then I also did the rank 'em. And I can't even believe it after I sat and looked at it long enough. I think Texas is going to win this whole thing. Um, and you're laughing
Hey,
at me, makes me think
they
that I'm.
very well might. Like it's one of those things where I look, when I stared at the bracket, that was one of the first things that jumped off the page to me was that they have a path
They do.
where they could very easily get to a point in the bracket where it's a coin toss between them and anybody else they play.
Yeah. And it's
Like,
going to, you know, they're going to have to get through Oregon. That's the big thing.
uh-huh,
But Oregon has to get through Ohio State.
maybe.
And now I say that because you are on Tennessee, but I don't know if you're on Tennessee to win or just cover.
I did take them to win in one of my
Okay.
other pools.
Okay.
I haven't jumped in. I got the Sandman pools here uh on the computer to work out between today and tomorrow. But I got into a work one where you just picked all of them,
Yeah.
all the bulls heads up. And so I just I have that feeling. I don't like the thing that everybody's doing that they just go, well, Ohio State under Day don't lose to anybody but Michigan. And you go, sure, yeah, okay. But that one a couple weeks ago was a pretty serious one.
Oh,
And I like it I I think that we have a good chance of some residual um feelings if Tennessee gets out to a big start. And their defense is better than Michigan's.
yeah.
I get there's a whole vibe thing that goes on there, but
Yeah.
to play your next game against a much better defense, I just go, look, I got to pick some upset somewhere. This is one that would be awfully funny.
Yeah. No, I can see that completely. See that completely. Speaking of upsets, well, I'll start. Ohio State's going to win. We're going to move on. They're even going to cover in my book, so that's enough of that. Um, SMU, Penn State, we both have them penciled in. I am not picking them
Hmm.
just to cover. I am actually thinking that that will be the upset. I think SMU can go into Happy Valley and win this. Um, Not necessarily because they're a better team than Penn State, but because Penn State will, under pressure, shoot themselves in the foot. And give me 8.5 points anytime against Penn State in that situation.
Yeah, that's where my head went. Like, if you pushed me on it, I think I'd have to take Penn State on on a pick 'em, but it feels like more like a 3 point game.
Yeah.
And 8.5, like obviously the line isn't that far off
Yeah.
mathematically, but it just feels like one of those ones that we have several points of value here. If SMU is properly amped up, I think part of the 8.5 ends up being Penn State plays big games all the time. This is the first big game year for SMU.
True. I think that's a
And
fair
if we
point.
see it all come apart, I think it will because it just all comes apart. Muffed punts, blocked kicks, picks, that sort of thing, where they just turn the ball over and screw up plays and, that sort of thing because they can't rise to the occasion in their first playoffs.
Yeah. I Texas is going to win 42-12. So I'm not sure how you've got Clemson in there. Clemson almost didn't make the top 25. Yet here they are,
Yeah,
coming in. Texas is too stout, man. They're just too much in my opinion. But hey, Clemson earned a right. They've been there before. Dabo's a good coach. Um,
I don't know that there's any. Are there any style points here for Texas just whipping Clemson into the ground? Like, I think, Texas has some questions around quarterback. We got yours, who's, hey, we got some big 12 school out there looking to write a big check and keep him in college one more year, and because he's underperforming, and that sort of thing. And I guess it comes down to, does yours want to go out there and show out to kind of quiet the, I'm either going to go or I'm going to stay and I'm going to go get my money, or whatever. But when you come down to it, like, you need to win the game, and then you need to end the game and not give the losing team an opportunity to catch you.
yeah,
So I think 12's a ton of
you're
points.
looking
And
backdoor cover.
so, yeah, yeah, I'm hanging on that side of, one of those down 17. Clemson keeps getting the ball and keeps moving it and eventually shoves one across. And then Texas just goes, all right, we're just going to kill the clock and be done with it.
See, Sandman Nation, this is where Brandon teaches his kids the first cuss words of his life. You're going to start hearing stuff coming out of Brandon's basement. And Ellis
It
is
very well could be.
what's that, Dad?
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely going to be, um, uh, and I'd say a more subdued reaction to these games, to just kind of ease little Ellis into sitting around watching football with me all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there'll come a point in time he's just going to have to get it. But for now, we'll, ease in a little
Sure.
bit. We can't be upset about backdoor
Absolutely.
covers, Dad. Um,
Right.
the last one on the page, and is probably my favorite, is the Notre Dame Indiana game. I'm excited that it's isolated on a Friday. I'm really, really not happy that the NCAA decided that they thought they needed to go head to head with the NFL on the 21st. That made
Yeah.
very minimal sense to me as to why they would do that. Um, there was a way to schedule this appropriately. They could have they could have played two on Friday and two on Saturday, but going head to head in the schedule, the Chiefs and the Texans are on at one, which is going to go head to head with SMU and Penn State, and then the Ravens and the Steelers at 4:30 is going to go head to head with Texas Clemson. Better way to do that, in my opinion. But we get to focus on Notre Dame, Indiana. I've been I love Indiana. I've been on them all year. I felt like they're an underappreciated team, but they've got their due. They're in it, and now it's put up or shut up time. Arguably, Notre Dame uh, could be the other team that walks through this thing and at least gets to the championship game. I don't think
Sure.
Notre Dame can beat Texas or Oregon, but I think they can walk through their half of the bracket and get there.
I agree. Especially this game. Just looking at this, this is one of those classic playoff games that we see in the pros all the time,
Yep.
where hard charging new team breaks through, you go into that wild card weekend, and then you just get worked. And look, it may be the flip. It may be that Notre Dame plays a close game and SMU just completely gets walked. I just think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
I think Indiana had a great season. They're getting like a month of getting to sit and like think about, like, hey, we kind of took these losses here right at the end, but we this was amazing, and now we need to go out there and play, the bowl for the state of Indiana. And I think that this number closes um at like 9.5.
Yeah, I think at the end when the money starts pushing on Friday morning, when all the bettors get to Vegas, talk about a big weekend to be in Vegas, right?
Oh, for sure.
This is going to be a massive weekend to be in Vegas because you got a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
bowl games, good NFL games, first week of college playoffs. There's going to be a lot of bets, so watch the trends on this. But I agree, 9.5 is a much closer number to where it's going to end.
Yeah. Yeah. So for that, they're already at 7.5. So I gotta lay the 7.
Yep.
Like I don't see a world where this isn't a fun game, but it ends up not looking very competitive when
Yeah.
it comes down to it.
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, hey, Brandon, congratulations. Welcome,
Thank you.
Ellis. We are the St. Louis Syndicate, and we've got a new member. So we're excited. You guys, this is going to be a tremendous weekend of football. Hope everybody has a blast. Hit us up. Hit us on Facebook. Hit us on Twitter. Give us a shout out. Maybe maybe there's a playoff game, a wild card game or something. We'll go live again on, and
Yeah,
Ellis can go live with us, and we can do a live feed stream again. That was pretty fun. So anyway,
absolutely.
we may try to catch a video next week if we can. If not, happy holidays. We'll see if we can't get even a quick 20, 30-minute segment in next week just to
Yeah,
recap and get you ready for the holiday games.
for sure.
Good luck with your picks.
Cheers, everybody.